The frustration boiling over is not the story of a competitor who cannot handle adversity. Every analytical framing of what happened tonight that lands there is missing the point by a significant margin. Clark's frustration boiling over is the story of a competitor who has been handling an extraordinary volume of adversity: organizational dysfunction, physical targeting, officiating inconsistency, public narrative attacks, and a system that actively works against what she does, with a level of public composure that Christine Brennan described as remarkable, and that the basketball world has been documenting across 3 seasons as the specific conduct standard that no other player in this situation would maintain as consistently. The boiling point is not a character failure. It is a measurement of accumulated pressure. 4 of 14 from the field, 1 of 8 from 3. Those numbers are real, and they represent a competitive performance that fell significantly below Clark's documented standard across this season. They also exist inside a game where the officiating environment produced the specific frustration this clip captures, where the organizational context produced the specific exhaustion that was visible in the previous video's documentation, and where the system this coaching staff has built was on full display against an opponent whose roster was better suited to exploit its weaknesses. The Valkyries had this from the get-go. That is the honest competitive assessment of the game, and it does not require any organizational accountability framing to be accurate. Golden State was the better team on this night. Their roster, their coaching, their execution, from the opening possession through the final buzzer, produced a result that the Indiana roster, as currently constructed and deployed, was not able to prevent. The boil over is what happens when a competitor who has been managing extraordinary pressure encounters a competitive situation where the system fails to give her the tools to compete at her level and the officiating fails to address the physical environment she is operating within. It is not a weakness. It is evidence that the pressure is real and that the amount of it that has been applied to this specific player by this specific organizational environment across this specific season has reached a threshold that produced visible expression rather than internal management. The frustration was real tonight. So was the behind-the-back pass. Both of them belonged to the same competitor on the same night.
Tonight, it boiled over. Caitlin Clark, her frustration is up here. All of it. You can tell all the drama, everything that's going on. And tonight, the refereeing, I normally, you guys know, I normally say, you're not going to get the calls. At this point, they're not going to give you the calls. So you have to act like it's not happening and play through. Woo-wee. Caitlin Clark showed out tonight. Her shot was not there, and the frustration boiled over.
5 uncalled fouls producing a visible on-court reaction from a player who has maintained extraordinary public composure across 3 seasons of documented insufficient officiating protection is the specific moment that this clip captures, and it deserves to be contextualized carefully before the reaction itself becomes the story, rather than the conditions that produced it. She lost it right there. That is the honest description of what the footage shows. Clark reached the threshold at which the accumulated frustration of the uncalled contact, 5 instances by her own count within a single game, produced a visible public expression that the officiating crew responded to by allowing rather than escalating. The officials allowed it. That is the specific observation embedded in this clip, and it is analytically significant. An officiating crew that gives a player a technical foul for clapping on the bench during a dead ball made a different decision when the same player expressed visible frustration about 5 uncalled fouls during live play. That inconsistency is its own commentary on the standard being applied and to whom. The "I have been fouled 5 times, give me a call" characterization is the specific claim Clark is making in that moment, not a general frustration about officiating quality. A specific numerical claim about documented instances of physical contact within the current game that she believes should have produced whistle responses and did not. Then, immediately following the frustration expression comes the behind-the-back pass that this clip ends on. The Larry Bird comparison is not hyperbole. It is the specific aesthetic response of someone who has watched enough basketball to recognize that certain passes carry a visual quality that transcends the statistical categories they produce, and that exists independently of whether the shot that follows them goes in. Clark missed the shot. The past was still beautiful. Both of those things exist in the same possession, and they represent the full picture of what Clark is on a night when the competitive conditions are difficult and the officiating is adding to the difficulty. 5 uncalled fouls, a crash out, a behind-the-back pass, a jumper that finally went down. The competitor is still in there underneath the frustration. This clip shows you both of them in the same 30 seconds. The officiating environment created the first. The competitor produced the second.
But this is another look at this. Real close.
I've got to be honest. The officials allowed...
She said F. I've been fouled 5 effing times. Give me a effing call. F. I got fouled 5 times. It boiled over tonight. It boiled over tonight.
That designation applied to Caitlin Clark on the team she commercially transformed. In the league, her presence transformed. In the sport where she is the most commercially significant active athlete. Is the specific organizational accountability conclusion that this entire season has been building toward, and that this clip delivers with the specific emotional force that the full context behind it deserves. This is not an analytical observation that requires extensive supporting argument to make credible. It is a factual description of how this coaching staff has deployed this player across this season. The play designed for someone else on the game-winning possession, where Clark was the third option. The 6:30 rotation pull during an active lead. The one shot in an entire fourth quarter. The system that operates differently when Clark is on the floor than when she is off it. Third option. That is the documented reality. And this clip names it directly, and with the appropriate conviction that the documentation supports. Not as speculation or as an emotional reaction to a single bad game. As the analytical conclusion of a full season's worth of specific, documented, repeatedly confirmed evidence about where this coaching staff places Clark in the organizational hierarchy of who the offense flows through and who it does not. She has been regulated to the third option on this team. The force that came into this league is the framing that places the third option designation in its full commercial and competitive context. Clark did not arrive in this league as a rotation player who gradually developed into a star. She arrived as the most commercially anticipated debut in the history of women's professional basketball. She broke attendance records before she played her first professional minute. She generated broadcast deals and commercial transformations that the league had been trying to produce for 30 years before she arrived. And she has been regulated to the third option. That is what has happened here. Repetition is not rhetorical emphasis for content purposes. It is the specific verbal expression of someone who cannot fully believe the organizational reality they are naming, and who names it twice to make sure the person listening has absorbed what they are hearing. That is what has happened, both times.
You combine everything. They have taken this force that came into the league, and they have regulated her to the third option on this team. Caitlin effing Clark has been regulated to the third mother effing option on this team. That's pretty wild to say, but that's what's happened here.
The money argument is the most commercially grounded and most institutionally significant accountability argument this entire video produces, because it strips away every other analytical layer and arrives at the fundamental commercial logic that professional sports franchises are supposed to operate by. She is the money. You protect the money. Those two sentences contain the complete organizational accountability argument for everything this season has documented. Not the philosophical argument about player development. Not the tactical argument about system fit, not the interpersonal argument about the coaching relationship. The commercial argument that every franchise owner in every professional sport understands as the foundational principle of organizational decision-making. The asset that generates the revenue is the asset you protect. When the asset that generates the revenue is the most commercially significant player in the history of the league, the organizational obligation to protect that asset scales proportionally to the commercial significance. Caitlin Clark is the most popular women's sports athlete in the world. That is the specific characterization this clip applies to her, and it is supported by the data that Kelsey Plum, occupying the number 12 spot in the player rankings, and Clark being the most searched athlete conversation, and the CBS ratings, dropping 600,000 when she does not play, and the ticket markets producing $10 available seats and empty arenas when she is absent. She is the money. The "if I owned this franchise, I would be printing money" framing is the commercial projection that every business-minded person watching this organizational situation should be running simultaneously. The asset that generates the commercial output Clark generates, when deployed in an organizational environment designed to maximize that output rather than manage it, produces franchise value that the current organizational direction is actively leaving on the table. Printing money. That is the specific commercial outcome available to a franchise that builds around Clark correctly, and that the current organizational direction has been consistently declining to pursue. She needs a new agent. That closing observation is not an afterthought. It is the specific gap between the leverage Clark possesses and the way that leverage is currently being deployed or not deployed on her behalf. She is the money. The money should have advocates whose entire professional function is making sure the money is treated the way its value demands. The agent should be the loudest. They are not. The Valkyries won.
Caitlin's been all class. Caitlin has got to be able to walk into that office and start kicking ass and taking names. Tell me what you think. Oh, there'll probably be some folks that don't like my video tonight. I'm just calling it like I see it. I'm sorry, but if I own this franchise, this team would be built around Caitlin Clark. And I guarantee you, as far as my business goes as the Indiana Fever franchise, I would be printing money.
The frustration boiled over. 5 uncalled fouls produced a visible crash out from a player who has maintained extraordinary public composure for 3 consecutive seasons of documented extraordinary pressure. She is the money. The franchise is not printing it. The system is not built for her. She has been regulated to the third option. Her agent is part of the club and is not the loudest voice in the room advocating for the player whose commercial value is the most significant in the history of the league. All of those things are true simultaneously. All of them are documented. All of them have been named specifically and directly across this season's accountability conversation. The boiling over tonight is what the accumulated weight of all of them looks like when a competitive night goes badly. The officiating adds 5 uncalled fouls to the load, and the organizational environment provides no systemic relief from any of the pressure that has been building. She is all class. That is also true, and it is also documented. The crash out happened. The behind-the-back pass happened in the same game. The 5 uncalled fouls claim was specific and verifiable. The composure with which she addressed the contusion from the previous game in her own press conference was the specific kind of measured professional honesty that Brennan described as remarkable. The class and the frustration are not contradictions. They are both real and both visible, and both belong to the same competitor operating inside the same organizational environment. She is the money. She has the leverage. She has got to walk into that office and start kicking ass and taking names. The team would be printing money if it was built around her correctly. It is not. The game result tonight documented that too. Drop your thoughts in the comments below.